Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar today, which is our second webinar that we're hosting on this topic of supplemental insurance and ensuring sustainable healthcare coverage. I'm Shalini from the Singapore College of Insurance. I'm joined by Sejal, who's the joint organizer with us at Singapore College so Sejal is from Crowell Global Advisors. We're jointly hosting this webinar. This is part 2, but don't worry, you will not be lost if you didn't join us in part 1. Sejal will give you a rundown of what we discussed in part 1. I think we're having one of our panelists back from part 1 who's joining us, Mr. Chan Wai Kit, who's a regular, I think, speaker on this topic. And today I think we will deep dive into the affordability issue, and we're looking at inflation, rapid aging, rising claims, and which are pushing premiums up and benefits down. And we're trying to see what can we do in terms of trying to what leaders are doing to keep protection strong. So I'm just joining us today for this panel. We have Ms. Sejal Mistry, no stranger to this particular area. She's going to be moderating this panel. She's the Senior Director at Crowell Global Advisors. And we have from very far away, well, for us in Singapore, Ms. Vaibhavi Mehta. She's joining us from Paris. She's the Global Head of Life and Health at Arundo Re. And we also have Mr. Chan Wai Kit, Executive Director of the Life Insurance Association of Singapore. And lastly, we have Mr. Makoto, fondly known as Mac, Makoto Okubo, who's the General Manager of International Affairs from Nippon Life Insurance Company. So they will be, the experts from different areas to share. And Sejal, I'm just going to hand it over to you for this engaging discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think before I turn it over to our panelists, I just want to give a brief recap of the first supplementary insurance webinar that we had. I think this was back in March. It was sometime, but I think it was a very engaging discussion, which is why we wanted to have a part 2 to this. I think we just essentially ran out of time. So just to remind everybody, supplementary health insurance refers to additional coverage that complements a country's primary, usually public, universal health insurance system. It helps fill gaps in basic coverage by offering enhanced benefits, access to broader healthcare services, and financial protection against unexpected high-cost medical needs. In the first session, we explained the importance and the complexity of supplementary insurance across Asia, emphasizing that there is no universal blueprint for success. Each country must tailor its supplemental insurance program to fit its population's needs, health system structure, and economic realities. Now, what is common to all these countries, and you will see globally, is that aging societies and escalating medical costs are posing ongoing challenges to the sustainability of universal health coverage. And this is where supplemental schemes also come in. Achieving affordability and viability requires a broad risk pool, large healthy populations, which distribute the burden of healthcare more equitably. And this is the examples that we explored in our last session about China's vast city-based programs and Singapore's integrated shield plan, both of which covers millions of people. From Singapore, we learned how a hybrid approach combining government support with individual responsibility drives success. The Singapore framework coordinates subsidies, personal health savings, national insurance, and targeted support for vulnerable groups. And I think importantly in Singapore, as we heard from Kit last time, and I'm sure this time we will also hear, is that collaboration amongst government, healthcare providers, and insurance is really key. In China, we talked about the multi-level security system, demonstrating the value of overlapping layers of coverage, employee insurance, universal resident plans, and city-level supplementary insurance. Digital technologies was a really key part of China's success and growth in supplementary coverage. And then lastly, we looked at Indonesia's journey focusing on coordinating fragmented insurance schemes under BPJS Kesehatan. And now they are working with OJK, the Financial Services Authority, to really come up with a new supplementary top-up model. I think across all these countries, we learned that supplementary insurance is helping populations afford new therapies, new technologies, and helping fill in those gaps that public schemes can't cover. But again, what we will hear today is that in the background of aging population and rising costs, the sustainability of supplemental health insurance schemes is still something we can't take for granted. So, in today's session, we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to bring insights with a more global view from Japan, as well as his role as regulator. Makoto Okubo will be talking about these insights. Vaibavi Mehta, who's no stranger to Asia, but can give us now insights from a more global perspective, particularly for Europe, as well as some lessons from the Middle East. And then, backed by popular demand, is White Kit. He just couldn't get out of it. I think he was such a popular speaker in our last webinar, so we had to have him on board today. So with that, I'm going to get us started in our session, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists to just briefly introduce themselves and their work, and maybe just some remarks that you see about the importance and maybe some of the challenges of implementing supplementary insurance models. So maybe if you don't mind, I'm going to start with Wai Kit Chen, since you are sort of transitioning from the last webinar to this webinar, and I think is, again, no stranger to this topic. So Wai Kit, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Lijao. I think, hi, everyone. I think happy to be here to share again some thoughts and views. I'm the executive director for the Life Insurance Association in Singapore. So I think that in our role, I think that we work closely with all the member companies, as well as the Ministry of Health, the monetary authorities, in terms of really health insurance in Singapore. And I think for those of you who are familiar, I think that the Singapore health insurance has evolved quite a fair bit over the past 2+ decades. But nonetheless, I think that it is still a continual work in progress, whereby even as the individual health insurance regime, which largely today we know it as the integrated shield plan, as that evolves over the years, we have came to realize that there is a need to really continuously look at what the redesign brings about. What are the changes I think that arises from, and continue to look for ways to actually adapt, right? So I think in Singapore, I think that there is the whole system is really made up with a few parts of it, right? Right at the very, very bottom, there is obviously the public schemes as well as the healthcare subsidies for really the lower income and the needy, and as well as really for the majority of the population who goes to public hospitals. And on top of that, that is where I think that we have the supplemental insurance, which comes in the form of two parts, one being the integrated shield plan, which integrates with the basic component of the MediShield, the part of it. And that is where the government part and the private part are integrated in one plan in itself. And obviously, as recent as maybe about 7 to 8 years ago, that was also when I think the whole concept of a rider also came into place to really address the extra out-of-pocket expenses that the customer may face, even if they had already purchased a plan. So I think the model that Singapore works with is obviously whereby there is already a base level of coverages that the government is really significantly involved in. But on top of that, where you wish to have choice, where you wish to have a better maybe creatures of comfort as you go into your hospitalization and care plans, right? That is where all these supplemental parts comes into place. And at the same time, I think according to your needs and affordability, that's where you get to choose your riders and all. But what we have really realized in a nutshell is that even as our design, like I alluded to earlier, as the design evolved, we realized that there are changes in consumer patterns. There are changes in how doctors, institutions may behave as a result of it. And therefore, I think that there is a need to really be continuously looking at data and what that information is informing the industry, and therefore for us to make the relevant changes. One of the key factors I think that has driven a lot of the outcomes is the fact that right from the governmental level, I think it has tried to pull together, I think to what I think Shalini and Sija mentioned earlier, multiple stakeholders in the whole healthcare ecosystem, which has to come together to the table to actually look at where the issues are and to adjust accordingly in order to feed the bigger national health agenda. Because this is not the whole thing about healthcare, it is not one whereby any single party singularly can actually manage to actually change the whole situation. And that is why, whether it's a governmental agencies, whether it's that insurers, whether it's that the pharmaceuticals, perhaps a little bit further away, but yet they are a key part of it. The hospital facilities, the doctors, all have played a part into this. And that's something which I think we have learned and we continue to adopt that model as we go ahead. So, yeah, that's probably a very summary of how things are. I mean, Sijal, back to you and or to the rest of
Yeah.
the panelists.
Thank you. Excellent points there, and I'm looking forward to jumping into some of those details with you. Vaibhavi Mehta, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and some opening reflections.
Certainly. Um, Good afternoon, everyone. I hope Singapore is treating you well. I have around 8 degrees here in Paris today morning, but very, very glad to join all of you from Paris. And I am Vaibhavi Mehta. I have lived and worked in India and in Singapore, and since past 1 year, I am based in Paris. My entire career, I have worked in insurance and reinsurance, have observed all facets of a health insurance delivery, right from hospital to the health insurance delivery to the end user, the insured. And now at Paris, I work with Arundori. I am the global underwriting head for life and health. This opportunity, this position gives me immense exposure to those systems in the world which, for past 17 years, when I was based in Singapore and managing Asia Pacific markets, to draw parallel about how diverse Asia is, how diverse Southeast Asia is, and what parallels can be drawn from European markets, Middle East markets, Latin American markets, so on and so forth. And I do realize that the basic necessity of a human life, where healthcare delivery highly depends upon the lifestyle, healthcare infrastructure, government policies, and so on and so forth. As we all know, Europe has been very, very mature and advanced when it comes to universal healthcare for its citizens in various markets of Europe, be it your France or Germany or Switzerland, so on and so forth. But also, it has a mixed bag of how advanced European economies, as well as those from the Eastern European side, are coming along for universal healthcare of its citizens. We also draw parallels from Middle East, where again there is a good balance of universal healthcare and supplementary plans. And then we also look at something like on Latin America, where all markets are different, where we realize that it highly depends on funding. There are also markets in Africa where highly depends on funding, even for a basic universal healthcare. I personally feel that we are very, very fortunate to be in Singapore, because in past 17 years, when I was based in Singapore and closely observed the health insurance as well as the healthcare value chain, be it our hospitals, pharmacies, our diagnostic centers, so on and so forth. The government of Singapore and Monetary Authority of Singapore has done a phenomenal job in bringing all the stakeholders of the value chain together for a seamless delivery. You get the shock of your life when you move out of Singapore and you realize that the basic things which we take sometimes uh, take it for granted in Singapore when it comes to healthcare is a luxury in other markets. So I think that I this entire discussion, and I'd be glad also to interact with below, besides the panelists, to interact with the audience members, that how it adds to our experience and overall universal healthcare, as well as the supplementary plans, and how best supplementary plans supports it, but at the same time sometimes dubious practices by every, I will not pinpoint on someone, neither on hospital or a healthcare provider or insurance company or insured, but all the value chain stakeholders sometimes contribute to such experiences which unnecessarily drive the healthcare cost and which can be controlled. So I think we all need to come together, and I should be thanking Sejal as well as Singapore College of Insurance of bringing such panels together, so that we all in the industry discuss about what is the need of the time with upcoming generations and changes in the demographics and the world order, what all we need to do. So very glad to be here and open to good discussion.
Thank you, Vivi. I think your perspective is really going to provide a lot of insights. As you mentioned, the different regions that you evoked has parallels in Southeast Asia and in all of Asia because of the diversity. And you'll see in our attendees list that we really span many of those countries, particularly within ASEAN. Last, I'm going to turn to Makoto Kubo, fondly known as Mac, who has a brief presentation that he'd like to share with us that covers many of the sort of the high level view on supplementary insurance, as well as universal health coverage and probably the SDGs as well. So I'll ask our colleagues at SCI to maybe put up the slides and Mac can begin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very honored and humbled to be here and for this conference organized by Singapore College of Insurance and Cromwell Global Advisors and Mako Kubo, Nippon Life Insurance Company. In the APEC, I serve also as a Sherpa for the APFF Insurance Health and Retirement Income Network, and we are working on healthcare and other long-term investments, the other matters. And also, I'm an executive director for Music for SDGs project to promote United Nations SDGs through entertainment. And then also I'm a global ambassador for the World Hikari Project. I will share some project with them too. So next page, please. So today I'd like to first talk about the demographics in Japan and to explain the public and supplemental healthcare system in Japan. And also I would like to share the strategy and new business paradigm of the Nippon Life Insurance Company. And also I share some perspective from the APEC. So I'm very happy to reunite with the Cromwell Global Advisors because we were together in Incheon, Korea, back to senior officials meeting of APEC this year in Korea. And then we just share some perspective. I'd like to continue discussion with you. And then this photo is actually my grandmother who passed away at the age of 105 and together with me at the age of 10. When she reached 100 years old, my father and uncle and aunt visited her and celebrate the anniversary. And my grandmother asked a question to my father, "How old are you now?" And my father said, "I'm 75 years old." And my grandmother said, "Wow, you have grown up." So we are living in such a community. Please, next page. So the Japanese demography is actually very extreme. For example, as of September this year, the 99,763 people are 100 years and older in Japan. So isn't it amazing because we have earthquake, we have typhoon, we don't take vacation, but still our life expectancy is longest in the world. Maybe we may be too busy to die. And what for sure is that we are probably too busy to have babies too. So the fatality rate in Japan is like 1.15. It's far below 2.07 required to keep the population. The population is decreasing, but the proportion for the elderly people are increasing. So the health cost for the elderly people would be higher as this graph shows. Next page. Another challenge is about women. So recent APEC finance ministers meeting, side meeting highlighted the need to promote women's health because women's health, the unhealthy life expectancy is longer than the men. And also the health situation for young women actually worse than men. So now we have to come up with a solution, reduce the health life gap, supporting the women's work health, promote gender responsive healthcare, and this kind of the challenges that we are facing. And Nippon Life strategy is based on those needs and strategies. Next page. Actually, before that, maybe I can summarize the situation in Japan. So in Japan, we have a public health insurance, but it's not covers 100% of the expenses. So the supplemental health insurance provided by insurance companies actually they cover something which is not covered by public health insurance. And also some benefits like hospitalization benefits also cover the very high technology advanced treatment which were not actually included in the public health insurance. So this is kind of the situation. So it's very different from the US situation that the insurance company cover the entire healthcare system. So, and then there's a tendency that we are just focusing on some of the riders and we try to prevent the people the sickness. This is something that we have been working on. Maybe next page. We are actually talking about Nippon Life Vision. So if you think that the insurance company is a company which pays money when something bad happens, you are still in the 20th century. So now the business model for insurance company has been completely changed. So we are now trying to compete each other to keep our customers healthier, to prevent sickness. So it's a win-win for the insurance company and the public, the people, because you don't have to pay a lot of money from the insurance company, and you can keep a healthy and happy life. And then I would say that Nippon Life is even in the third generation. This means that it is not just a prevention, but we are the organization which remove the anxiety from the life. So providing the service is a very focus. For the health insurance products by Nippon Life, it's a combination of the money that we pay, but also the services that we provide. So in terms of sustainability, we focus on the people, community, and environment. The catchphrase is a planet and people, both in a very balanced way. This is a kind of sustainability concept, and this our healthcare program is in line with that. Next page, please. And then this is a kind of sustainable health through innovation and partnership. We're just using the massive database that we have, and we have a consultation service helping the government agencies and employers and giving the information to make sure that their employees are good health. And then we have just started the welfare and health information system focusing on women. And also we have investments on the helping those, and we have hospitals, we have a research program with us, and in terms of preventive measure. So this is something that we have been doing. Next page. And also we have been doing is that we just acquired a niche group, the largest long-term care providers, and also one of the largest child care facilities providers. And also we give medical support. So now we are focusing on the many different things: life insurance, asset management, medical services, child care services, and long-term long-term care services. These are the core business of Nippon Life. We even teach the people who provide the services. This is something that we are doing. Next page. And in terms of women, so we are just educating the husbands to take care of the babies. And we have a product which is specifically helping the women to who want to have a babies, and we keep babies while you're working, and we invest on the the health related investments of women related bonds, and we just use the network and strategic alliance with every single prefecture to have a cancer screenings exercise in 47 prefectures to make sure that they have early detection but cancer, which is also a win-win. And this is kind of the philosophy. So my key point, key takeaway from this is that supplemental health insurance is not important only on the money that we pay. So the most important things about the existence of the supplemental healthcare is actually the justification for insurance company to use the resource to keep people healthy and provide services, wide range of services to remove anxiety from your life. So if the public healthcare 100% coverage, insurance company has nothing to do with this. So the people remain sick and the budget will be big. So this is kind of the core of the importance of the supplemental health insurance in my view. The next page. Okay, so I just like to share some from the APEC. So APEC has convened, and then the APEC Finance Ministers meeting endorsed the work of APFF. I'm a Sherpa for the Insurance and Health and Retirement Income Network, and actually is working on various matters. For example, we support the sustainable, resilient, and inclusive development, and also we are just using the long-term investments in infrastructure, capital market, and funding innovation. For this funding innovation, a lot of healthcare-related innovations are included. And also in terms of the sustainability, we are working on a transition finance and ecosystem for the SDGs. we cannot forget the fact that environment affect on the health. So we are working on the health and environment. This is the different ways actually to promote sustainable health and also promote the beneficial and the responsible use of digital technology, including AI. The recent joint statement from the APEC finance ministers included the APEC initiative on artificial intelligence and also the APEC collaborative framework for demographic changes, both related to our work. And we are happy to work in APEC, and we are happy to work with Singapore, which is a key economy under the APEC. So I'm very happy on that. So, and I have just been back from the IAIS International Association of Insurance Supervisors meeting, and I took a microphone and I shared the updates from the APEC. I tell them that I'm now working on 5 E's under APEC. E, environment, economic growth, e-technology, education, and entertainment. And I'm very happy to work on those 5 E's to promote those sustainable health. Next page. Talking about the health, maybe you can start the video. So let me share. Okay, the sound. Okay, thank you very much. So the collaboration with World Hikari Project. The World Hikari Project is a project to promote the technical assistance and also the sustainable life and healthcare through entertainment, including music and fashion shows and movies, and also digital art. So I'm wearing the tie designed by the digital artist Mayu Ikeda, who is actually using this. And this is actually the Silica project that I shared with a recent APEC meeting and OECD. So this is a miracle material actually to bring the many different solutions, both for planet and also health. So just like you're just cleaning the human body from inside. And also that same material can be used in a building actually to protect the environment. So this is kind of the various brief descriptions, but we are working on entertainment, educate people on those matters. The next page, my last page. So this is one of the examples that we have been working on entertainment. For example, like we organize a gala dinner for APEC and also ABAC and also the reception for UN PLI. And we use music for education on the SDGs. And also we recently have a concert and a Kid Summit at the Osaka Expo. So you can trust me. So the people love entertainment. So we got millions of people's interest and talking about health and insurance. That's why I'm doing. And thank you very much. It's my introductory remark. It may sound like a keynote speech, but it might be a good starting point for my point of view. Thank you.
You, Mac. Always wonderful to hear your perspectives. And I think it's actually a great starting point because rather than delving right away into the how of supplementary insurance and what are the problems and what are the details, I think the why of supplementary insurance is really what Mac was talking about, is this collective commitment to good health and well-being. And so I think I would love to start, I think, with the panel to talk a little bit. Let's spend a little bit of time on the why of supplemental health insurance and the responsibility, if I dare say so, of insurers to this collective vision on universal health coverage. I think every country has a different sort of philosophy into what the responsibility of the government is and maybe what is the responsibility of private insurance. I think, if you don't mind, Vaibhavi, I'd like to start with you. In your experience, knowing the Singapore model, India model, different insurance models, what do you think is the value of a supplementary insurance model in an era where the public government in many countries, Europe, India, et cetera, is providing some access to or significant access to universal health coverage, to insurance, or some form of financial protection.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Sejal. I completely resonate with what you're saying that we need to address why supplementary health insurance. And to start with, like taking the example of Asia itself, right? We know Singapore has one of the best universal healthcare. The government is very, very strong when it comes to supporting the citizens and the residents about the healthcare infrastructure. Everything is great. The hospitals are good. We have very good medical talent. We have good government provided healthcare insurance. Drawing parallels, like as I said in my introductory remarks, that Europe is one such where I can draw parallel where we have a huge region and repeatedly they ensure that there is a good universal healthcare for its citizens, for its residents. And people are very, very glad to know that for major illnesses, critical illnesses, major organ transplant, cancer treatment, long term kidney dialysis treatments, and all, the government takes care of that. I mean, believe me or not, I work in France here since past 1 year, and the healthcare delivery of the citizens is well taken care of by the government. So we are very glad to know that we have some part in the world where universal healthcare is truly appreciated and provided. Moving to other parts of Europe, especially towards Eastern Europe and all, again, there are markets where such arrangements are provided, but the delivery of healthcare depends on all the stakeholders in the value chain. And if one part is fractured or broken, it definitely disturbs the healthcare delivery. But still, I would say on an overall basis, Europe, I would say, is much, much better when it comes to universal healthcare, and the probability or the possibility of a supplementary healthcare is much lower as it is again as compared to Asia. Not that there are no private players, there are private players, and for employer-employee benefit sort of a group arrangement or an affinity scheme, still you get better coverages from a private player who supports you on a supplementary healthcare level. That is about Europe. But if I just step back closer to Asia, which is in Middle East, you see that most of the markets in Middle East, again, one of the best healthcare deliveries, and they take amazing care of their citizens and all. But we also have to be very mindful of the demographics, given that Middle East is a region where there are a lot of expatriates, a huge influx of expatriates, and because of that, the need of a supplementary health insurance plan from a private player is huge. Having said that, is it that everyone compulsory mandatory have to buy it now if you're in an employer employee scheme, or you are a standalone businessman and all that? Depending upon your market, your regulation, you are in Oman, you are on UAE, you are in Kuwait, you are in Qatar, depending upon the market you are operating in, the mandatory health insurance for expatriates plays there. Again, the healthcare infrastructure in Middle East is one of very, very good, which again helps for all the citizens as well as expatriates to get amazing treatment. But it also drives healthcare cost, given that you have one of the best healthcare delivery technologies, advanced medical systems. You have a cost to support that, and that cost is mostly, if you are an expatriate, that is borne by you under your supplementary health insurance plan. Your employer employee, your group insurance, affinity insurance does help into that, but ultimately it is borne by the employer and the employee to assess that world class healthcare delivery. So Europe is there, Middle East is there, we see that. And then, as I mentioned, that we also see that going ahead, the one thing which I have observed in my recent visits to Middle East is that IPMI, which is again popular plan in Singapore, International Private Medical Insurance, works even beyond the supplementary health insurance, where private players are coming and giving that comfort to individuals who might not be residents of the country where they are working, and they want to go back to their home to seek the treatment, a long-term treatment or a major surgery and something. And that immensely helps, but also it drives healthcare cost a lot. Supposing someone staying in Asia, flying back to USA or flying back to Europe to secure the treatment. And if they are coming to their hometown and supported by the government universal healthcare, that's great. But if it is not, and they are tapping into the IPMI, which is, I would say, is a top up on supplementary health, then it is going to drive the healthcare cost. So I think private players do their best to work along and to structure such plans where they can cater to the market, but at the same time, we have to be mindful that all that catering to various global level of healthcare delivery adds to the cost. It is also very important here to notice that not a single private player insurers, or just not the government or not just the hospital, is responsible for healthcare delivery, neither responsible for shooting cost, which we are observing of late. And everyone comes together to this is like a musical piece orchestra where everyone does their due diligence, everyone does their delivery part, and it comes together. And as I mentioned, that many markets in Africa, many markets in Latin America are even struggling to get a good funding for universal healthcare. So that is altogether a very different thing. I feel in Asia, we are very, very fortunate that our Asian markets are coming up. And I generally look at Asia in a manner where we have advanced economies like Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, Japan, Asia Pacific, and they are doing their due diligence. And then we have hegemons like China and India, which are huge, which are immense, which are extremely diverse, and healthcare delivery is good, but still catching up. China, of course, way ahead than India when it comes to healthcare infrastructure and healthcare delivery. But in both when I look at both these markets, the government at the central level is doing their best to bring healthcare delivery not only to urban area but more to the rural area, underpenetrated area, through their universal health schemes. Again, execution many a times falters, and it depends upon how the citizens can assess the healthcare delivery. They have the healthcare infrastructure for hospitals or not. But I firmly believe that governments are doing their best to bring the universal healthcare to each of them. We should be mindful of getting the access beyond the universal healthcare. For the supplementary healthcare, we should be mindful of the cost involved with it, and we should be extremely mindful with the usage pattern of that, so that we do not realize, but the underlying, I would not use the word abuse, but moral hazard, the underlying moral hazard adds to the immense cost, which unfortunately leads to financial unsustainability sometimes for the private players. So yeah, I think universal healthcare is important, but is equally, supplementary health insurance is equally important for that. And I would just like to add one last point, that in Middle East, I have observed this, they promote international private medical insurance because they realize that most of the expatriates working in Middle East are from Indian subcontinent, and it is quite easy, quite beneficial for them from a monetary perspective to send the person to the Indian subcontinental to get the treatment and stay with the family, rather than keeping them maybe in Dubai or Qatar or Doha to seek the treatment, and unlike US or Europe. So I think IPMI that way also works in Middle East a lot.
So, Vaibhavi, I think one thing I would like you to touch upon at some point, and maybe Mac as well, is in countries that have had traditionally very generous universal health coverage programs, is supplemental insurance necessary? In Europe, it seems like an almost if you want to get access to certain almost luxury services or faster treatment, at least that is the viewpoint of having additional private insurance. But why kid? In Singapore, I think there was a very deliberate effort by the government to already diversify the sources of financing, saying, yes, there must be some out-of-pocket expenditure. What is the role of private insurance in fulfilling that cost, and that the government is not going to take care of everything? So I think, I'd love to hear maybe your comments in terms of, despite being a very high income country, in, along the lines of Europe and Japan, how Singapore has made supplementary insurance and the integrated plan as part of the core model. And then also touch upon some of the points that Vaibhavi made. And I think she was kind of saying it a little bit hesitatingly, capturing the right word about the usage patterns. Because you also mentioned this in your introductory remarks, is that with the lessons of over time, is that there has been some maybe unforeseen consequences to these models. So Wycliffe, please, over to you.
Thanks, Ijal. Yeah, definitely happy to share some thoughts on that. But perhaps before I start, I thought just to hearing that in the earlier, I think panelists talk about, I think that even for those countries with very generous healthcare benefits, fully supported by the government and all, I think it will come as no surprise that it is just more a stage of development. It is not to be also taken for granted that that's going to be the case forevermore. I mean, I have had the opportunity to speak on the sidelines of some of the discussions with even the Middle East authorities or even Bruneian authorities, which are known for their rich benefits. And I think that the challenges of healthcare is imposing a significant burden even on that basis, because as the population ages and we are at different stage, to Mac's point, I think that Singapore's fertility is actually lower than 1, by the way, so it's worse than Japan. So I think that with that, I think that that's that part that even for such economies, I think that they are looking at ways of of redistributing the burden and the healthcare burden as they plan ahead for the next decades to come, right? So, so I thought that that's something which I have observed, I think, in a couple of conversations that I've had. So I think back to the perhaps the Singapore model in itself. So the Singapore model, I think CJ, as you rightly pointed out, I think right from the early, probably about 2 decades ago, there was a very active push towards the concept of the shared responsibility, whereby the government does take care of a certain level, but individual have to take responsibility to for the rest of it. If you want to have choice, please get a top-up insurance plan because your basic is not going to be enough. If you want to have quicker access, I think that again that is where your integrated shield plan comes into play. So that has been a very deliberate educational campaign that has brought everyone on this journey along the way. All right, so I think that that's one. Having said that, I think that the lessons that we have learned or that we have had to understood as also the fact that when you have a very comprehensive system whereby the payers are largely either A, the governmental schemes, B, the insurer, it does change one as a consumer of healthcare services, how I approach it. I mean, as a patient, obviously there is a lot of reliance, a lot of trust in the medical system, in the doctors prescribing, recommending treatments, right? So with that kind of information asymmetry, whereby obviously the respected doctors, medical institutions, there will be again to the point of not pinpointing any one party. There will always be specific groups or specific individuals who take advantage of that, right? Whether it's out of additional concern, well, might as well do that one more test. Might as well prescribe a little bit more just in case, right? In any case, it is paid for. In any case, there isn't a significant pain on the individual to pay out of pocket. It drives certain kind of behavior, both on the consumption side as well as on the supply or the recommendation end of things. So with that, it does create a pressure for claims costs to go spiral upwards. And that obviously comes back into the whole vicious cycle of hitting the plans, hitting the benefits, and all. So I think that that's something that we have observed. And with the introduction of, I think, elements such as co-insurance, deductible, it drives a bit of the slightly more responsible usage. But to what level that's expected to be, or to what is a more stable level that we get to, I think that that's a question that has to be deliberated at different juncture, right? So I think that one of the things is also, I think, the something which we felt that has helped, I think, the Singapore model adapt over the period of time, which I know that may not be the model in some of the markets for plans, is our ability to actually amend the benefits and premiums. I think that has allowed, I think, the market to have a tool to actually be a little bit more responsive. Versus the fact that I think in some markets, I think that whether it's out of political pressure, whereby it's obviously not a favorable approach to be able to change benefits for insurance plans or to change premiums for insurance plan, but it is a very critical tool that has allowed the plans to be able to balance the differences and adapt accordingly. So in Singapore, I think that in recent years, which I think Japan is a lot more further advanced and further ahead, I think it's really also the push to encourage not just really about the hospitalization episode, but how to bring up the overall healthy behaviors right from the start, the prevention, the vaccination, the healthier habits, what you eat, what you drink, right? I think that there has been a lot of efforts, I think, that has plowed into this area, largely, I think, in Singapore specifically, more led by the governmental efforts, right? Through different programs, whether is it Healthier SG, is it food labeling of the healthiness or the sugar content and what have you. All this, I think, is also trying to drive it towards looking at things in a more holistic way and not just at simplistically the healthcare financing aspect of it. I think that is something which I think we could possibly learn a lot from Japan. And I think that insurers are also doing their part, but are they as sophisticated end to end? Probably, I think that there's room for the insurance sector to be even more integrated to really look at such aspects as well. Yeah.
Like it, I think you set up these remarks perfectly for Mac to reflect on Japan's lesson. I think exactly on this sort of new model, let's call it Insurance 3.0, of having that holistic wellness and preventive health paradigm. Mac, what have you learned about how Nippon Life and others within the Japanese context is developing that expertise beyond actuarial expertise to really help incentivize that behavior or promote that healthy life and well-being with amongst Japanese citizens?
Okay, thank you very much. So let's talk a little bit about the history. So I entered the company in 1980s. At that time, the Japanese business models were selling the saving type of products. The most popular products at that time was a single payment endowment policy. And then the Japanese life insurance company are called Seifo, and a tremendous growth with a very fantastic financial markets. That was the starting point for me to enter the insurance market. And then after that, so the market turned very bad, and then the situation is that no more insurance companies can provide the higher return than those of banks. So then the just new the models, the protection death benefit kind of business model started, and that was quite successful. But recent years, the medical healthcare products with the preventive measures and service-oriented products are more popular than those because of the change of the society. So the people, the women's are now interested in going to the labor market. So you don't need husband actually to finance all of the households. So the protection products is no more as attractive as before. And as I explained, the population has been decreasing so much. So it's the both side from the demand side and also like the supply side. We are just inevitably going into the healthcare. So I would tell you that maybe, for example, we have been tired to hear that the Japanese life insurance market is matured market, and population is decreasing, aging demographies are putting the challenge for Japanese life insurance companies, almost like a crisis. But if you write the character crisis, It's the dangerous but risky, but it's opportunity. So that giving us a lot of opportunities. I explain that the supplemental healthcare, and I talk about the current situation of Japan, but also I infer that maybe the future, the population is even more challenging. So then, a question is that this kind of perfect public healthcare system can be retained for the entire life. We have to say a question mark. So then the supplemental health insurance market will have a very, very big growth potential. And now the medical technology is growing with the use of artificial intelligence. We are just they are tailor-made their medical treatments based on the people, not based on the experience of each doctors, but it's an advance. The more and more advanced and new technology is coming, which are not covered by public healthcare system. I would say that supplemental health insurance market is a kind of promising market for the insurance company to work with. This is kind of the belief that we are working on. And in terms of AI, not only some insurance company are always using the use of AI for example, like risk classification or maybe underwriting, but we use the AI for very wide range of the things. For example, since we own the hospital and we are just trying to have artificial intelligence for medical services, and also in terms of claim handlings, it should be more like customer centric. So, for example, I always use the analogy. For example, like maybe several years ago, I forgot my charger in the All Nippon Airways flying from Japan to Bangkok. And I didn't even know where I lost it. So I was thinking of buying a new one when I come back to Japan, but it didn't happen because when I show my passport in the check-in counter of All Nippon Airways in Bangkok airport, she told me, "Oh, Mr. Okubo, just a moment, please. You forgot your charger in the previous plane." So I didn't even file the lost and found. This is a kind of quality of the service that Japanese customers expect even from insurance company. So in terms of the claims for healthcare, so we don't wait for the customer to file claims. We advise them to actually fill the form. So if we hear that customers is injured, so our agents visit them and then they find out what kind of services that we have. So AI is a tremendous benefits of doing this because agents are very busy selling insurance anyway. So this kind of new, the proactive claims handling can come very easily for the future. So we make sure that we can just keeping them. So we keep them healthy and we keep them, like happy. So, and then, for example, for children, the parents buy life insurance from us for children. So we make sure that those children will be happy. Not only the money that we pay to them, but we just protect the environment for the future. We provide education for them to make sure that the dream of mothers and fathers would be carried over from insurance company in terms of their people. So I always tell the people, like, if you hear the word AI, you should remind the Japanese name or Chinese words of AI, which is I. It means love. So the AI should be used to carry the love among the generations, among the business partners, to make sure that we are building the brilliant future. This is a new business model of insurance company, and we are happy to work with all the insurance company on this planet on this. Thank you.
What I love about this description, Mac, is that instead of insurance just reducing anxiety in people, you're raising expectations of the entire industry. But I want to get onto this anxiety point because you brought this up earlier as well, is that insurance is really important in giving people that peace of mind. That if something happens to me, I'm not only covered by good quality healthcare services, but I'm not going to bankruptcy. Vaibavi and Wykit, you both mentioned that sort of consumer behaviors. on one hand, and you can look at just another test as perhaps overuse of services, the incentives are there to, prescribe because it might be a revenue driver, what's the cost to us, but it's also that peace of mind that people get. I think in addition to more tests to make sure that we haven't uncovered any, lingering tumors or anything like that, the practice of healthcare is evolving, as Mac also mentioned, with new technologies. So now that there are more cancer treatments, there are specialized treatments that are coming out there, can supplemental insurance or even the private insurance industry play that bridge and access to new services and treatments? I think, as you mentioned, we don't want to change consumer behaviors or provider behaviors in a way that is excessive, but then who deems what is excessive? I think starts getting into some of those hairy ethical debates and questions. So I'd love to hear, I think, both from Shalini and Wykid on your perspectives there. Maybe I'll start with Wykid. I think you are probably most closest to this issue at hand in Singapore.
Yes. I think that obviously, I think as Mike pointed out, I think very clearly, I think technology as there, I think it prolongs the lifespan, hopefully prolongs their health span. I think technology, AI, all there's some good development that can drive positive outcome, right? And they are there to stay. So let's not fight it. Let's rather look at how they can be possibly leveraged for a better outcome, right? I think one of the things, I mean, from my perspective of things is we as they come along, they come at a price that has to be paid, right? So there has also got to be information, and it goes back down to the point of data and how important it is for this industry to even start from deciphering what is really the whole thing about, well, this technology might be great, that is something innovative, this is something interesting, but what really drives the outcome that we want? What is really effective in driving the desired outcome, right? And then with those information being available, that then goes into the debate of should that be covered by insurance? Should that be covered by the main plan itself? Maybe by a subsidiary, a new development, a new rider, because these are also novel, these are also differentiated, or do you park that in, right? So this will be the conversations I think that will need to have, right? And I think that even from that perspective, I think we were aware that there are even currently, I'm aware of some of the conversations going on whereby there's this new technology that's personalized medication, etc. Well, it's great, but the cost is phenomenal. How do you absorb that into the main plan? Or what if it is a significantly expensive treatment whereby the probability of success, while is there, is that low? Do you include, do you exclude into your coverage, right? These are the decisions that it cannot be made by the insurer alone. It has to be made in collaboration with the government, with the developers, with the pharmacists, with whoever that's bringing that on board to get a better understanding of all this new technology. I think to Max, Max brought up a very interesting point, which got me thinking a lot as well. I think the fact that, well, with AI coming on, you actually proactively may actually be able to reach out to customer, right, to help to service them. I think that element of driving the trust in the customer has taken up an insurance plan. We are happy as the insurance providers to actually be paying out for necessary treatments, etc. We are not shying away from that. But by leveraging technology to show that we are not shying away from paying it, it's also an opportunity to engage in the right conversation with consumer to educate them on how the entire healthcare system is going to be, their roles, their responsibility. I think with trust, I think that that also make any adjustment, any change a lot easier, a lot palatable. So I thought that it's interesting because I think that very often there's a perception that sometimes, well, we are here to reject claims, which is obviously not the case. We are here to pay the rightful claims, but how, I think that, do we actually show that part of that, right? So I thought that's some interesting
Yeah.
perspective. Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. And I think trust in your insurance comes down to whether or not your claim is covered at the end of the day. But I think making the point is make sure that it is the right technology that is effective for the patient. And I think this is a really important point. Bobby, I'd love to hear your comments on some of what YKIT shared. And I think also, if we were to fast forward in Europe, let's say in maybe even 5 years, 5, 10 years time, as populations are still aging, chronic disease are going higher, and you have these new technologies, assuming it's in that quadrant of high cost, but also highly effective, supplementary insurance may become more and more in the European context. Can you also talk about how you see the role of governments in in Europe in particular coordinating with insurance? Is there a two-way dialogue right now? Does that need to evolve? Do you have flexibility in a European context to amend benefits and premiums and have a sort of collaborative cooperation, understanding that Europe is diverse and you don't know all the answers to that? But any insights you can share would be wonderful.
Yeah, certainly I can. And before I jump to what the governments are working along to see that how sustainable and universal health plan is, let me just take a step back and refer to both Wykit and Mac about the actual points which they raised. When Mac mentioned about Japan's demographic, similarly globally, the demographics are changing. And currently, what European markets are facing is birth rates are low, employment rates are low, nuclear families are coming up, and this entire younger productive workforce is reducing. And the older generation, where they are unable to work, they are not productive, and they have very generous healthcare benefits that has completely tilted and imbalanced about the incoming money and the outgoing benefit expenses. And that is one of the reasons that the European markets and the governments are crushing under this excessive financial debt because of this arrangement. Years ago, decades ago, when this was arranged, it was well balanced with very good noble intentions, but of late, with changing world order, this is becoming imbalanced. That is one of the primary reason that the governments are trying, whenever they try to claw back, once you give it to the citizens, it is very difficult to claw back it. But at the same time, the government keeps on insisting that, guys, you have to, as citizens, take your own responsibility. You cannot hold the government entirely responsible and accountable for an individual's health and depend on government healthcare. So that translates to supplementary healthcare. Now, when you come to supplementary healthcare, the basic premise of an insurance operation is scalability. You develop a product, and that product should give you a coverage, or should not let you be financially in a bad position after the insured event has occurred. Unfortunately, people have forgotten that insurance works on these two. One is scalability, and another is a major event which can impact you financially. Nowadays, you see supplementary plan providers, the private players, they are giving you riders to cover OPD. They are giving you riders to cover some very, very small deductibles. I mean, seriously, this is crushing the entire advent of why an insurance is required in first place, right? And the entire moral responsibility, a responsibility of the users gets diminished, right, diluted, given that I am covered for OPD, I am covered for my deductible, I can use it, ultimately I have paid the premium, I deserve the claim. As Vaikit rightly mentioned, we are not here to reject the claims, but we are here to pay the rightful claims. But again, if we are the ones who are giving you cover for OPD, cover for deductible, we should be paying the claims. So it is very important for regulators to come on board to say that, okay, let us have plans where the end user is responsible for their own healthcare management, at least to reduce the moral hazard, and at the same time give them the insurance coverage for all the major illnesses which can impact them financially. Stepping one point ahead, as they all mentioned, AI is coming up. New medical technologies are coming up, but unfortunately, there is a very uneven tech adaptability in the entire healthcare value chain. Pharmaceuticals are way ahead in R&D. Healthcare delivery hospitals are quite good in medical technology and equipments. But what about insurers? What about, for the same time, government? Are we also catching up? Is there anyone sitting here in insurance industry and saying, oh, I completely understand how a new technology works or how this works, and I am being able to provide an insurance cover? Great, you can. But then, is everyone adapting to that? Are you able to scale that cover where many people pay premium for that component, and when you get hit by claims, when you get claims, you have enough premium to pay the respective claims? That imbalance of scalability to match up with the advanced technology in terms of R&D or product innovation is severely lacking in the entire value chain, and that is where people get extremely frustrated by insurers. In fact, I would say that insurance industry unfortunately faces one of the lowest customer satisfaction index, saying that, oh, these people never pay the claims. But the reality is, we pay the rightful claims, but sometimes one more test to ensure nothing leaves behind, where we realize that it was not required. So such uneven things do come into play. But coming back to your question, yes, in European markets, it is as Mac mentioned, right? That Japan is now like bit tired of mentioning that, oh, it's quite advanced. In European markets, like, people say that it is saturated, it is mature, universal healthcare is available to most of the residents and citizens. What are they doing? So in 2023, actually, there was a digital health reimbursement strategy study for 8 European countries, and they came on board saying that, okay, what if we develop digital solutions for reimbursement? What if a person living in Poland goes to Belgium, gets treated, comes to France, gets treated, go to Switzerland or Germany, goes anywhere in the European Union and gets treated without the worry of whether he or she will be covered or not? When they conducted that study, they realized that yes, all the individual markets are equipped enough to adapt that, but at the same time, the seamless integration between all the countries, where a European Union citizen doesn't have to worry about the treatment, the quality of treatment, the reimbursement, the accessibility of the treatment. A great healthcare infrastructure was uneven, certainly, given that it is a combination of various markets and various countries. So that thing came across, and now, since this was happened in 2023, the governments are again coming together, saying that, okay, what digital solution needs to be developed so that not only we give a great universal healthcare experience to our citizens within our market, but across European Union. And I personally feel that a lot of technological advancement, adaptability of new innovation, and to connect each of them through a network where they feel that, oh, they are not just restricted by their own region or their own market, but they can cross across European Union. I think this is a very wonderful initiative. Again, depending upon how fast this works, but certainly markets are coming up with this to ensure that people are well taken care of, not only under universal health scheme but also under supplementary health scheme, or regulators are working where both government can come on board with the universal healthcare plan, private players can come with supplementary healthcare plan, hospitals can come with a good healthcare delivery, the diagnostic center can come with a good medical advancement equipments, and the entire universe of healthcare can work seamlessly together. Again, this is a dream, and we hope that that dream comes true very soon. But in markets such as Europe, that helps. That certainly helps. Also, a last point that I have also observed, that in Middle East also such things are happening, not across the markets as of now, but like Qatar has mentioned that now they are introducing a mandatory health insurance for all non-Qatari nationals, and they who are visiting or are living in Qatar, and that opens the door for immense possibility of supplementary healthcare providers, at the same time giving them good product, good services. And I think after setting up all the spare parts required to deliver a good healthcare experience, again, we should not forget that at the end of the day, we are dealing with human lives, we are dealing with human emotions, and whenever an individual files for a health claim, unfortunately, they are always in a very emotional state. And when you are, it is not like that you are filing for your for loss of phone, or where you get the insurance or damage to the phone and you replace with a new phone. Here we are talking about healthcare. We are talking about not only a financial impact but a healthcare impact on the individual. And when are they filing a claim, they are emotionally so charged up that whenever you tell them about a new new technology, new lifestyle pattern, or you try to guide them, you try to teach them, educate them, make them aware, they are not in a state of mind to respond to that. And if at all you come back with saying that, oh, such claim is payable, but XYZ might, something might be not payable, they immediately respond to an insurance industry with a blanket universal statement that insurers are unreliable, we shouldn't have bought the health plan, they don't pay the claims and all that stuff. So I think I firmly believe that not only the curative part, not only the preventive part, but we also need to come one step ahead and help them with the healthcare management, both physical and mental, so that products which help them even before they go to the hospital or before they even feel the uneasiness about their health management at their home, we should be there to help them with the awareness, with the education of their physical health maintenance and the mental health maintenance. I think we need to move there along with the other uh, healthcare providers with advanced technology, with AI, data management, so on and so forth. There is immense possibility of product innovation. I feel insurance industry is one of the most interesting that way. We have immense potential to grow further.
Absolutely. Just so I'm not accused of false advertising, I will open it up to audience Q&A. We did say that we would have some audience Q&A, and I'm going to pick up on an earlier point you mentioned about riders. Do we need a rider for everything? And in fact, Boon Keng Tan, who has been submitting several comments and questions, has been patiently waiting for YKIT's response. Is riders relevant to our integrated shield plans with ever increasing premiums? Is there another way to justify these increases? And is there another way to cover the deductible and copay? So at what point do we have too many riders, and are we doing too much with the insurance? So YKIT, I turn it over to you.
Sure. Now, I think that let's take a little bit of a step back. That when we talk about a rider, right, the essence of a rider is to provide some form of additional coverage, additional protection. I think the crux of the matter, therefore, is what should be the benefits that are being provided in the rider, right? Should you really go towards covering nearly every single dollar? I think we have heard various of us share today. We are probably of the view that it should not be, right? But again, is there a benefit for riders to be there to cover some of the perhaps more exceptional expenses, right? I think that is a role that riders typically fulfill. That what if there are certain instances which are really out of the mind, blowing out of the entire expectations, that's not covered because of the main plan covers the majority, but there are certain significant things which are not to be covered. Example, I think that whether as a significant treatment that is perhaps a little bit more advanced, etc., and you therefore do not cover it under the main plan, I think riders has a role to play. I think where we are probably, I would suspect, going to be increasingly moving away is to cover from the first dollar, for lack of better words. I think that is where I think that some of the misalignment, and I think that is where some of the lack of responsible usage or responsible prescription problems come in. And then you get into that very vicious cycle of spiraling upwards premiums, then you go into affordability, etc., etc. But if it is structured properly where the benefits and what it covers, then I think that there is a role for riders per se as a supplemental type of insurance coverage.
Okay, I also want to just tack on a question that, earlier on we talked about the importance of government and insurance industry collaboration to make these supplemental insurance models work. And this goes to the third questions again, is should the target be specialist doctors who exceed the extra test or who order the extra test? what kind of conversations are insurers having or should be having with hospital groups, those pharmaceuticals and healthcare providers, that can maybe find some common ground on how do we do this in a way that, yes, get people the healthcare that they need, but also is not excessive. Again, it's maybe more art than science, but are insurance companies and yours, the ones, your members in particular, having those conversations with healthcare groups?
Sure. I think that at least for Singapore LIA members, I think that most of you will have read. I think that a number of them are obviously having different conversations with different hospital groups or different collaborations that are being launched from time to time. So I think that the answer is definitely, I think insurers are working with different groups to look at better value packages, how best to control costs, what's the right treatment for the different kind of medical conditions, etc. So those conversations are definitely, I think, happening from that perspective. I think that even as so one key fundamentals that would be able to make more informed decision is really about data, right? You need to have the data in order to inform you of what are the differences, right? So once you look at, well, for the same condition, and even then, arguably, what is the same? A 50-year-old having a cancer versus a 30-year-old having the same cancer could be quite drastically different kind of treatments that might be needed, right? But all that being said, I mean, with data informing you over a sufficiently large pool, I think that is where, through the use of AI, etc., you'll be able to fish out some of the outliers and then to work with collaboratively, I think whether directly with the hospital groups or through the government agencies to come together to address some of all these issues. And I think that once such issues gets addressed, there's also a spiral effect, right? Where the government, I think that, which I think, thankfully, I think that we have Ministry of Health that does have certain measures in place to look into, to investigate, whereby there's potential risk of mischarging, and you probably read in the papers, double coding, etc., which inflate up claims. I think that that's where there is an investigative body to look into such. And where it is founded to be true, I think that there will be penalties there. Now, obviously, one of the challenge having said that is that I think the burden of proof, right? Whether as it regulations, etc., I think that when you have the burden of proof being to quite a high level as what it is, and argumental or is really up for debate, whereby medical, as you said, is sometimes an art. It's a science, but yeah, there's an art part of it. So how do you get that balance? And if you only solely rely on the government to take action, that ain't going to work as well. So I think that the role of the insurers with the medical providers, I think that kind of conversation or that kind of some form of friction is still needed to keep it, I think, more sustainable as we go along. And I think that that's important. Yeah.
So you bring, I think data has come up several times, and the promise of technology and these efficiencies and breakthroughs can happen when we have the data. The question is that data coming? Where is it coming from? How are those conversations? Are they supposed to happen with government, with hospital groups? Are you getting the data you need to make those kind of assessments? Or are there new sort of models that we need to look at? So I'm going to still keep with you for a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mac after that. Yeah.
Sure. I think that there has been some advancement in that. I think that right from the fact that I think years ago when Singapore started things like the fee benchmarks, etc. I think that when there's an increased data transparency, I think that industry has noticed certain positive patterns whereby there is a benchmark of what are the lower boundaries, the upper boundaries, obviously with the implementation specific for Singapore context of panel doctors, etc. I think that has again, I think, driven, I think, some of the costs to be a bit more predictable. But on the flip side of it, though, that while those areas have become more predictable, it might have inevitably shifted the cost to some other areas which are less transparent, right? So are we there already? The answer is absolutely not. I think that there is still a need for increased transparency, which is why I think that recently, at least in Singapore, I think the minister has alluded to that there is probably work ground to look at even more data points that could be provided to increase the transparency. I think I think that some hospitals have moved towards value-based care, right? Whereby it's really based on the outcome than really just a fee for treatment, fee for service. I think that that is also a model, I think that's coming into, for lack of better words, coming into fashion as driving a better outcome, I think, for the end consumer. So I think that these are some of the things that I think has evolved. In Singapore, I think we also have, thankfully, I think that years ago, I think we were set up, I think what we have as known today as the MHIC, or the Multilateral Healthcare Committee, Insurance Committee, I think where the different stakeholders are represented to discuss about the issues and the longer term solution. I think that is a platform that I think we do believe needs to be continued to be leveraged to talk about the future strategies and to act on that. I think that that's something that we are continuing to engage upon.
Absolutely. And I'm gutted that we don't have another hour. We're getting close to the end of the clock here. But Mac, I want to turn to you because I think in addition to data transparency, the other thing we said is really having those productive conversations and collaborations. In your opening slides, you highlighted the kind of partnerships that Nippon Life have had with different medical institutions, be it pharmaceuticals, hospital groups. Now you're talking about long-term care. What have you learned from collaborating, and have you been able to find models that are sustainable both from an insurance standpoint as well as the healthcare side?
Yes. So in terms of strategic partners, we try to team up with those companies which have a specific expertise in certain area. For example, focusing on the dementia, maybe like or the other like diabetes related, and then it's probably better to team up with the experts rather than just like educating the internal employees on this. So we have a lot of strategic alliance. In terms of strategic investment, we have a very like a clear mechanism. For the pure investment, we look at the returns and also impact. So it's not only profits that we are looking at in terms of investments. So we need to make sure that investment is actually helping the people. And then also for the strategic investment, we would like to maximize the synergies of those companies invested by us with our, the core business, which include the 5 components that I have just talked about. For example, we have a strategic alliance with some companies. Nichi started from the strategic alliance. And then we thought that maybe it's good to actually have that business with us. So we decided to acquire the company as a 100% subsidiary. So starting from the strategic partners, and then maybe the many companies actually end up being our subsidiaries. So we just working on the counseling experts on the mental health and others. So just capturing the expertise, and then if it meets a certain requirement qualification for us, it can be a part of our group in the future. This is kind of, gradual things. And in terms of regulations, for example, the life insurance industries under the insurance business law, so the activities permissible for insurance companies are just limited by law. So we need to get the definition of your relevance to be able to engage in certain business. So it's not automatic. We have a dialogue explaining that there is activities actually helping our core business, and this should be a permissible, the activities for us. This is it's not automatic, but it's a very long, lasting dialogue and collaborations, something like that.
Well, I think we're getting towards the end, so I'm going to ask my co-host, Shalini, if you are able to perhaps provide some concluding remarks. And again, I feel like we still have some unfinished points in business here, but alas, we're up at the
Oh my God, I
end of
think
the
I'm not
webinar.
qualified to do the concluding remarks, Sejal. I think you would be best to do that. But
Sure,
it's like it sounds like, Sejal, we need a part three. Why kid? Can we sign everybody back up for part three? Sejal, it doesn't look like the conversation has ended though. What do you think?
absolutely. I mean, listen, even the part one expanded into new areas, questions, and part two,
Exactly.
instead of answering those questions, added additional questions. So we may just have a series on this. We're going to put YKID as a permanent member of the Supplementary Insurance Task Force.
Yes, and I think Mac added a whole new perspective,
Yes,
I think, to the
absolutely.
conversation in terms of the work that you are doing, Mac. I think that was really very interesting in terms of the many things that they are doing to keep people getting sick, right? And caring for them in different life stages. I think that was also very interesting. I think Vaibavi brought that very global perspective. You know, she went to every different time zone. I'm sorry, Vaibavi, I know you covered every damn country there. Okay, so yes.
Yeah, so since
Yes.
we are launching the APEC initiatives on this digital innovation in insurance and healthcare, so maybe we can keep in contact and I can share some development from the
Absolutely.
Asia Pacific
great.
region with you. It's included digital matters, technology, but also regulation, especially the use of AI, protection of the privacies. This kind of important issues are related to this topic. So I'm very willing to share that information when we have a more like developed concepts notes. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, and in fact, Shalini, Mac, and I have side conversations on APEC because I'm heavily involved in the APEC Health Working Group,
I
where
remember.
we are also talking about supplemental insurance. I know many of your members and the participants today are part of APEC economies. It's a good overlap with ASEAN, but beyond ASEAN. So I think let's keep the conversation going. I think one thing that came really clear to me is that given the increasing pressures on healthcare budgets, the healthcare demands, the needs of the people, but also the wonderful technologies that are helping to expand lifespans and quality of life, supplemental insurance is going to continue to stay relevant. And as Max said, really a growth opportunity in many of the countries that we're talking about. So I think we will have further discussions, I think, with Singapore College of Insurance, Pro Global Advisors. And I don't know, maybe we do this in person with the hundreds of people that are on the webinar today. But let's call this to be continued. And poor YKIT is going to keep getting called back by us.
You have a
No
job for
worries.
life, like it.
You have my support for this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mac. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks, Sejal.